My name is Khaled Sabsabi. My practice is made up of many things and it's progressed over years and it's still evolving, so it keeps adapting to new technologies and new tools. A lot of people almost miss the point of my artwork or the essence of what I'm saying in my artwork, because my work's been called extremist in the past and all sorts of things. Yeah, my artwork essentially is about humanity and commonality. I grew up in Granville, Auburn and Granville. We migrated here with my parents in '78 due to civil war in Lebanon. I started out years ago in the '80s doing hip hop music. It wasn't just a music, it was also an expression and a platform. You know, rappers would rap and tell a story like Public Enemy. And they were, you know, speaking about their surroundings and their hardship and that sort of thing. That's what attracted me to hip hop. It was an opportunity to express what I felt, not just for me, but our community and history that's not documented.
Come on. Get up. Stand up.
So from there progressed into making sound for theatre, and from there started working in youth detention centres and refugee camps and so on. And it became almost a tool for inspiration, working with communities and people, especially young people.
Hip hop in Western Sydney, or Australian hip hop, is alive. The underground is here, and you're going to see it in its true form, not in like watered down club version or watered down censored version.
I did a fair bit of travel in the early 2000s. I left this country and I went back to the Arab world and North Africa and Southern Europe. And that was the first time traveling since '78. That sort of just changed my mind on what I should be doing, and decided that I needed to learn new skills. And then I came back and I did my master's in COFA. And that sort of led onto another path, which started to use video. And then in the early 2000s also, video technology became accessible. So video became another extension, because when I make video, the narrative is still sound. I don't think of an image first and then put the sound later. It's the other way around. I've collaborated with a few artists. It depends on the project. And then there's work that I do on my own as well. But what's really important for doing the work, I mean, I shoot the work, I edit the work, I render the work, I put the work together. So the whole process I pretty much do. And I think it's important for me to have that strong command of the medium and the tools and the materials. I understand what they can do. I understand what needs to be refined. So you can see, for example, with particular software, where it's pitfalls, where it can be improved, what software is better than others and so on. I find that really important, because then you're able to tweak things as well. I like to use accessible material that is found in everyday technology. I don't really like the notion of something being exclusive. Even in my editing work, I use PC, and I use you know, a lot of shareware and freeware and that sort of thing as well, because it makes the work more unique. Because things can blow up, experiments can go wrong. It's still raw, it's not as refined. And this is the beauty of the work, because you find, you know, these little mistakes which define it and make it almost unique to other work. Of course, testing needs to be done prior to going to install the work in terms of materials used, how to use those materials, the most efficient way to use those materials, and so on. Mainly I use video at the moment. Like I said, sound is a really important component of what I do. Some of it is sculpture based, but it depends more about where it's located, what it's communicating, how it's perceived, and how it's interacted with. My work is really about social justice as well. This notion of difference, yes, we're all different, but at the same time, we're all tied into something together, being humanity. The work, Naqshbandi Greenacre Engagement, I think was made in end of 2010, early 11. But it was part of a 3-year exhibition called Edge of Elsewhere. And it was a fast turnaround because I did 3 works over the 3 years. The second year was Naqshbandi Greenacre Engagement. I wanted to explore a little bit more about Sufism. And Sufism is, the mystic branch of Islam. The Sufis are a very different type of people. Okay, they believe that everyone is equal, etc. I wanted to see what local Sufis exist here. So I did my research and I identified 5. The only one that responded was the Naqshbandi Tariqah, the Naqshbandi path, and they just turned out to be in Greenacre, which is conveniently only 20 minutes away from where I live. And it was meant to be a research, it wasn't supposed to be a work. So I went to their hall. It's not their hall, it's a Scouts hall in Greenacre. And I spent, 3 months with the community, but slowly it was at first, I was invited in, I got to know the people in the community. So basically it's just family. It's just a few different families, not one family, but a few different families. But what was really fascinating was, it was a snapshot of our current Australian society, or within Sydney. So you had Bosnians, you had Turks, you had Serb, you had Lebanese, you had Cambodian. That was the makeup, the cultural makeup of the group and the family. And basically they would get together every week and they perform a ceremony called zikr. It means to mention God. So they would sing, right? And they'd get together and the kids are playing around and so on and so on. And then after there would be conversation, we would sit down and speak. They said, so you do video? I said, yeah. And do you want to bring your cameras and video us? And I said, that's very generous of you. Okay, well, we'll try. I shot the work in SD cameras. It's not in HD. The SD for me represents, for that particular time, the idea of SD is standard definition. That's what life is, it's standard definition, right? So it was 3 cameras set up in the room, recording the ceremony. What was really beautiful for me with that work is there was no post-production. One take all the way through the whole work, hour and a half, it's one continuous take across 3 cameras. They're a bit disjointed, the 3 cameras. They don't join evenly in terms of how they're positioned. But such is life as well. Not everything is perfect. There is imperfection. And what was really beautiful is, as I was saying, were the kids, the children. And you would see them. They would come in and out of the frame. They would just sleep. Sometimes they're asleep in some of the shots. Sometimes they're playing. Sometimes they're hitting each other. And it's just part of life. For me, this is important because for that point, it's like, well, hang on, the physicality can't exist without the spirituality. So one can't exist without the other. There is some sort of connection there. There has to be. And that's what that represents for me in that work. It's not just Muslims doing their thing and we have to be tolerant. It's not that. There's 3, 4, 5,000 years of knowledge passed through these people. And with that time, there's got to be knowledge that we today as society and in the future can benefit from. And to sort of just dismiss and say, well, this generation is the most modern, the most sophisticated, the most, competent, then we should forget, generations of past and knowledge of past and learning of past. This is wrong, because we become, in almost supermarketed beings. Beyond the video aspect or the post aspect, the studio aspect, the site is just as important for me as the work that's going in that site. So considering the site, looking at the site also, how the work is installed, how it's positioned, is really important and crucial, because it can either make a work or break a work. You could take the same content and work, and it depends how it's installed, is how it's critiqued as well, because there is meaning in the site, how the work interacts with that site and how the site interacts with the work. Basically what I do is I'll make the work, look at the site, even if it's a cube, as in gallery, and looking how it can work within the space, but also how it can communicate with the audience and the viewer. And it depends on the work. Some work has an interaction with one person, so it becomes the work and interaction, exclusive interaction with that one person. Or other work, it's more about a collective and a group of how the work communicates with. There's also the consideration of power as well. Within a lot of the work is how, the relationship, power relationship between the work and its viewer, whether one dominates the other or whether it becomes a neutral conversation as well. So in the MCA you have 3 works, I think 3 works in your collection. You have the Naqshbandi one, which can be shown as the monitor work on the ground, or it can be shown as projection. But the projection size has to be the same size as the viewer. So the projected characters must be the same size to allow that relationship to happen. With the monitor work being 3 monitors on the ground, there's a carpet to invite you to come and sit down. So that carpet acts as the bridge to welcome people into that work as well. I think asking yourself why you choose to be an artist is really important. The work that I do and what I present is basically driven by subject and content that I'm passionate about and committed about. To say one thing that, inspires me and lock it in and that's it. No, I mean, look, I get inspired by other artists as well, by good work as well. I get inspired by sometimes the smallest things, like everybody else, It's just it's how you perceive something and how you reflect on that something. I think away from the industry itself, the art gallery, the representation, the profile, the fame, and all that goes with being an artist. Yes, that's part of it, and to some it's more important to others, and that's all fine and good, but it's essential that you continue to make work. Artists start the conversation, and from there we plant the seed of conversation in people's heads with our artwork. And from there, I think the conversation continues beyond us.